Hello everyone, this is Hidayat Shahid. I'm your lab instructor for MECE2310U Concurrent Engineering Design course. In this lab exercise, we will design a barrel cam actuator and we will perform motion simulations. And after reviewing the motion simulation results, we will make some design changes to our system. So let's have a quick look at the assembly of your final design. In this lab exercise, we are using a barrel cam actuator and we are transferring some of the packages. We are pushing it down using this pusher down this ramp. And the barrel cam is run by this motor. Barrel cams are very common in the industry. They're used for sequential motions as well as indexing and so on and so forth. And a barrel cam could be used to control two or multiple mechanisms. So for this mechanism, to just demonstrate what you're expected to achieve after this lab exercise, you will see the results. I'm simply going to play the results. So as you can see, the pusher is moved by the contact between barrel cam, and then the packages are transferred. So in this lab exercise, you will be introduced to a few other parameters in the motion simulation, such as contacts, gravity, and so on and so forth. So to start the exercise, I'm going to move on to start the modeling. Before going to modeling, I would like to mention a few things. In this exercise, you are designing some of the parts using SolidWorks, and some of the components you're using which are standard components. For example, you have this rail, and then you have this guide, and you have the motor and the gearbox. And these are the standard components that we are providing you their SolidWorks model, and all other components you will be modeling in the part modeling environment. So I'm going to start the lab exercise. To do that, I'm simply going to open a new document, and I'm going to open a part file. And first thing first, I'm simply going to change the units to mmgs. And I'm going to save this file as I already have these files, but I'm just going to go to the lab folder, which I have been using it for the other lab exercises. And that's what you should be doing. This is the general folder we created in the first lab. And I have created this folder, lab 4A4B, and you should do the same thing. And in here, you can save the first part with your student ID, lab 4, and you could call it barrel cam. So to start the modeling, I'm gonna select top plane. I'm gonna click on sketch, and I'm gonna click on sketch icon, and I'm gonna select the 2D circle, and I'm gonna add the dimensions, which are 150 millimeters. And I'm gonna go to Features tab. I'm gonna select Extruded Boss Base to add the extrusion, and I'm gonna set the depth as 270 millimeters, and I'm gonna click OK. In the next step, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select front plane, and I'm gonna go to insert. I'm gonna insert a reference plane, and as a reference, I'm gonna set the distance as 75 millimeters. I'm gonna click OK. I'm simply gonna delete this one. I don't need it. I just double clicked it, and I entered 2 in there. So all I need is this plane. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a sketch on this plane. And the sketch I'm gonna add is basically I'm gonna click on sketch icon, and I'm gonna start adding the sketch. The first thing first I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a center line so that I could specify some dimension associated with it. So the sketch, I'm simply gonna start somewhere here, and I'm gonna move out. I'm gonna draw an angle. I'm gonna go draw a horizontal line. I'm gonna draw a line which I'm gonna line up with this one, and I'm gonna simply draw another horizontal line, and I'm gonna escape. So this is the sketch. Now I'm gonna enter the dimensions. So I'm gonna start from this side. This dimension is 30 millimeters. And from this edge to that one is 50 millimeters. The angle between these two lines is 115. From there to there, the distance is 165. And this one is 125. The angle here is 140. Since this is moving away, so I'm simply gonna add a relationship before I enter another dimension. And I'm selecting this one. I'm holding my control key, and I'm gonna make them collinear. And I'm simply gonna move this on this side. Alright, so the next dimension that I'm gonna add here is from here to the center line. It's a 471.25. And I'm gonna zoom in there, and I'm gonna set this one as 10, but I'm gonna flip the side. So this sketch looks like how it's shown in your lab manual, and the sketch is fully defined. And what I'm gonna do is now please make sure all your dimensions are correct and consistent with the lab manual. Otherwise you will have trouble with the with some of the features that may not work in your assembly. Okay, I'm just gonna add this dimension again because my reference was off. This is supposed to be 30 millimeters. Alright, so I'm gonna exit the smart dimension, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna offset this. sketch profile. Gonna click on the offset entities, and the distance I need is 20. And selection, I'm gonna select, I need it in this side. So I have just added this, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close this sketch profile by simply drawing this one and this one. So in the next step, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some fillets. I'm gonna click on this sketch fillet, and I'm gonna select the radius. I'm gonna specify for now is fillet parameter. I'm gonna leave it at 10, and I'm gonna select this one. Oops, I did something there. I'm just gonna delete this. I am just selecting this, 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 here, and I'm gonna keep select this checkbox. So I wanna change, I will be making some changes to these dimensions, so I'm gonna select this checkbox so that dimension for each fillet appears on the drawing. So as you can see, it is right there. So now I'm gonna make changes to the dimensions. So first I'm gonna add one dimension here. I'm gonna select Smart Dimension. I'm gonna select this top horizontal line, and I'm gonna select this horizontal line, and the distance between them, it's 150. And now I'm gonna make changes to the fillet dimensions. So the first one, I'm gonna change this one to 60. And this one, I'm gonna change it to 80. And this one will be 60. And this one, I'm gonna change it to 40. This will be 60, and this one is gonna be 40. Oops, something is weird going on. I'm just gonna press Ctrl Z. So to avoid that, what I'm gonna do is let me add 40. Maybe I entered a really high number. Yes, that was the mistake, probably. I entered 140 or something like that. I don't even know what I did. So that's R40, and this one 120, and this one will be 100. And now I'm gonna change this dimension, which is 30 millimeter. I'm gonna change it to 1 millimeters. So this is where the sketch is defined, but it's not fully defined yet. If you wanna fully define the sketch, please add a few more dimensions without wherever this sketch exists. For the purpose of this lab, as is, this will work for the barrel cam, and it's not a requirement. So I'm simply gonna exit the sketch. So I have my sketch there. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this sketch to make a cut on the surface of the cylinder. To do that, there is a feature available. If you go to Insert and go to Features, you can use this wrap function. For the dialog box, simply select this sketch, and for the surface to wrap around, select this cylindrical face. And there are three options in here. You could use emboss, you could do a deboss, you could use scribe. So we're gonna use deboss. And the depth for the cut, we're gonna specify 10 millimeters. I'm gonna click OK. So as you can see, it has made that cut. after wrapping that sketch around. So now in this next step, I'm gonna remove this material which is left over. To do that, what I'm gonna do is I'm simply gonna click on sketch, and for the plane or the face, I'm still gonna click on this face, and I'm gonna click on this convert entities, and I'm gonna select this again. I'm gonna click OK. So this has created the sketch, and I'm gonna go to Features tab, and I'm gonna use Extruded Cut, and in here I'm simply gonna specify up to next and click OK. So it's simply gonna remove that material that's left over. If you change the display without edges, it will show smooth. I'm gonna turn on the display with the edges again, so that I can see things a bit better. So now I'm gonna select top plane, and I'm gonna click on sketch, and I'm gonna look normal to that plane, and I'm gonna draw this simple 2D circle, and I'm gonna add the dimension as 25 millimeters. I'm gonna go to Features tab. I'm gonna click on Extruded Boss Base, and in here I'm gonna specify two directions. The first one I'm gonna set as, I'm just gonna rotate my model so I can see it better. This one I'm gonna add as 320. For the direction 2, I'm gonna set this one as 50. And I'm gonna click OK. So now I'm gonna add the last feature for this part, which is basically chamfer. I'm gonna click on the chamfer icon, and I'm gonna select I'm gonna enter the parameter set. It has 2 millimeters. I'm gonna select this edge, and I'm gonna select this edge, and I'm gonna click OK. So the part is complete. The last step is I'm gonna add specify the material for this barrel cam. To do that, simply I'm gonna right click on it. I'm gonna click on Edit Materials, and under steel I'm gonna pick up stainless steel, and gonna use this one, and I'm simply gonna apply. So it adds the properties for stainless steel, and I'm simply gonna close, and stainless steel shows up there, and I'm gonna save this file. So this is done, and I'm gonna close this file, and I'm gonna open a new part file, and I'm gonna set the units as mmgs, and I'm gonna save this file as, and this part I'm gonna call it, name it as frame, and I'm gonna select the top plane, and I'm gonna draw a sketch. The sketch is very simple and straightforward. It's a center rectangle, and I'm simply gonna go somewhere there and drop it like that. And for the dimensions, I'm gonna set this one as 160, and this dimension I'm gonna set as 250. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna exit this dimension. I'm gonna select this midpoint and press my control key, and I'm gonna select this origin, and I'm gonna make them coincident. So this will fully define the sketch. Okay, so I'm gonna click OK to dimension, and I'm gonna go to features. I'm gonna select this extruded boss base, and the depth I'm gonna specify as 350 millimeters, and I'm gonna click OK. And after this, I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna click on sketch. I'm gonna press my space bar key, and I'm simply gonna select this view, and I'm gonna draw rectangle, which I'm gonna select as a corner rectangle, and I'm simply gonna drop it somewhere there, and I'm gonna add the dimensions from here to here. Simply gonna add 30. Same thing on the other side. 30, and from here to here it's gonna be 20. And I'm gonna, after entering that, I'm gonna go to features tab, and I'm gonna simply select this extruded cut icon, and I'm simply gonna select through all. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna click on sketch and press my space bar key. So I'm simply gonna look normal to that face, and I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna select this corner rectangle, and I'm simply gonna line it up from this corner, and I'm gonna drop it somewhere there, and I'm gonna add this dimension as 100, and this dimension as 160. I could have just added the relation there, I could have lined it up, but that's okay. Now it's fully defined. And now I'm gonna go to features, and I'm gonna click on boss extrude, and I'm just gonna rotate this model so that you can see. And under the specification, I'm gonna use two specifications in the dialog. The first one, I'm gonna keep it as blind to extrude it in this direction, and I'm gonna leave this one as 200. I'm gonna enter 200. For the second direction, I'm gonna check this box, and under here I'm gonna specify the face up to surface, and I'm gonna select this face from the bottom. So this is the end result, and I'm gonna click OK. So this is done. And now I'm gonna rotate my model. I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna look normal to basically getting that view, and I'm gonna add a sketch on this face. It's a simple sketch. I'm gonna line up with that origin. I'm just gonna make sure that I'm lined up, and I'm gonna draw a center line starting from there, so I'm gonna attach them together. And this one I'm just gonna check it's vertical, that's good. And now I'm gonna add the dimension for this circle, and this is 25, and from center to this edge it's supposed to be 165. So this is done, and I'm simply gonna use this circle to make a cut. I'm gonna go to features tab, I'm gonna select this extruded cut, and I'm gonna specify through all, and I'm gonna click OK. So that's done. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna simply look normal to, and I'm gonna zoom in. and I'm gonna add a sketch on this face. I'm gonna select this, click on sketch. I'm simply gonna line it up here and drop it there, and I'm gonna add the dimensions from this edge to this vertical line. It's 20 millimeters. On the other side is the same thing, 20 millimeters, and from here to here it's 30. And I'm gonna use this sketch to make a cut. And to do that, I'm gonna go to Features tab. I'm gonna select this extruded cut icon. And for the specifications, for the direction, I'm gonna specify up to surface. And the surface I wanna make the cut up to is this one. And I'm gonna click OK. So this is the end result for that one. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this face, and I'm simply gonna look normal too. And I'm gonna rotate the model so that the view is same as in your lab manual. I'm gonna press spacebar key. I'm simply gonna select this view, and I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna draw a sketch. I'm gonna click on sketch icon. I'm gonna grab this corner rectangle. I'm gonna line up with this edge, and I'm simply gonna line up with this vertex. And I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna click on the dimensions. This dimension, I'm gonna keep it 50. It's a fully defined sketch, but if you check the dimension, this is 120. I'm gonna escape, and I'm gonna use this one to make a cut. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Features tab. I'm gonna click on Extruded Cut, and in here I could use blind. This would do it, but I could also do it up to next. And let's see what happens. Click OK. So I have created that cut there. And now I'm gonna add a hole on this face. So I'm simply gonna click on Hole Wizard, and the hole specifications that I'm gonna specify, they're the standard. It's a simple hole. I'm gonna use standard Dean, and over here we're gonna select tab drills. The hole specification is simply M6. And the diameter, I'm gonna show custom sizing, and I'm gonna change this one to 7. And in terms of the end condition, I'm gonna specify through all. I'm gonna click on the position tab, and I'm simply gonna line up with the origin there, so it's right at the center. And I'm gonna click on the smart dimension, and so I can set the dimensions here. So the dimensions from this edge to the center, it's 20, and this side to this side, it should be 80. Yep, so it is 80, and I'm gonna click OK, and I'm gonna click OK. So this has created the through hole. Now I'm gonna copy this hole along this direction. To do that, I'm gonna click on linear pattern, and under direction I'm gonna specify this, and under the features to copy, I'm gonna simply select this, and the specifications on the dimensions are going to be as follows. The distance between the holes, it's 60, and the number of instances, we need 6 holes in total. And gonna click OK. So it has created these holes along there. And now I'm gonna add a sketch on this face. I'm gonna simply select that, click on sketch icon, and I'm gonna press space bar, and I'm gonna select this view, and I'm gonna zoom in, and I'm gonna draw the following sketch. I'm simply gonna go draw this rectangle there, and I'm gonna grab this, draw from here, come across there. I'm gonna draw a vertical line there. I'm gonna press escape key, and now I'm gonna trim this line, and now I'm gonna add the dimensions to define this sketch. It's 32. This needs to be 20 because I did not line it up. It's fully defined. This should be 20 as well. And this is these are the dimensions. This is supposed to be 160. I'm just double checking as per your lab manual. And I'm gonna exit sketch. And now I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna look normal too, but I'm gonna rotate the plane, and I'm gonna simply press spacebar key because this is the view I wanna see. So in here I'm gonna add a sketch, and it's gonna be simple line. A horizontal line from the origin. I'm gonna move it this way. I'm gonna move down, and I'm gonna add another horizontal line there, and I'm gonna add 2 dimensions, a few dimensions. This one is gonna be 100. The angle between these 2 lines is supposed to be 145, and this dimension is supposed to be 160, and from there to there it's supposed to be 288.55. So the sketch is fully defined, and I'm gonna exit the sketch. And now I'm gonna use the add the feature swept boss base. I'm gonna click on this icon, and for the sketch profile I'm gonna select this profile. For the path I'm gonna select this profile, and I'm gonna click OK. So it's basically gonna create this feature there. And now I'm gonna rotate my model. I'm gonna press space bar, and I'm simply gonna select this view, and I'm gonna add a sketch on that face. I'm gonna click on sketch icon, and I'm simply gonna add a corner rectangle, and I'm just gonna simply line it up here, and I'm gonna make it coincident there, and I'm gonna exit there. I'm simply gonna select this and drag it. I'm gonna make it coincident there, and I'm just gonna double check the dimensions. This is 85, As long as I have made these 2 points coincident, I'm okay with this sketch. Now I'm gonna click on features. I'm gonna select extruded cut, and I'm simply gonna select up to next. I'm gonna click OK. So this basically will create that. And now I'm gonna add another sketch on this face, and I'm gonna press space bar key again. I'm gonna click on this view and I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna click on sketch icon, and I'm gonna add a circle somewhere there, and I'm gonna add the dimensions now. So the dimension from center point to this center point, the horizontal distance is 32 millimeters, and I'm gonna click on the dimension again. I'm gonna select this, and now we're gonna add the vertical one. Vertical distance is 32 millimeters, and the diameter for this circle is 6.6. And sketch is fully defined. So I'm simply gonna use this circle to create a hole, to cut a hole. To do that, I'm gonna click on extruded cut. And again, I'm simply gonna select up to next. So it creates the hole. And I'm gonna use this hole, and I'm gonna create a linear pattern. To do that, I'm simply gonna click on linear pattern, and direction, I'm gonna select this edge, and I'm gonna flip this on the other side, and I'm gonna select this edge, and features, I'm simply gonna go and select this, and the specifications, all I need is 2, and the distance is 64, and 2 here, and 64, and 64. I'm just double checking on the manual. Yep, it's 64 and 64, and I'm gonna click OK. And now I'm gonna add 2 chamfers. So I'm gonna go to chamfer icon under fillet, and I'm just gonna specify the distance D1 as 20 millimeters, and I'm simply gonna select this edge and this edge and click OK. And the last step for this part is we're gonna specify the material. I'm simply gonna right click on the materials, and I'm gonna select from here 1060 alloy. So the next step that I'm gonna do is I'm simply going to select this face and click on sketch, and I'm gonna click on convert entities, and I'm gonna hit convert entities again because I want to pick up this one as well. So this is the sketch that I need, and I'm gonna go click on boss extrude, and the depth I'm gonna specify is 15 millimeters, and I'm gonna click OK. So this is the part for the frame. I'm gonna save this file. Now I'm gonna start your next part for this lab. I'm gonna go to file. I'm gonna open new file, part file, and I'm gonna set the units as mmgs, and I'm gonna save this file as student ID with the lab4 and pusher. This is the name for this file. And in my case, I had that file again already in my folder, so I'm just overwriting it. So now the first thing what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this top plane, click on sketch. I'm gonna select this center rectangle. I'm gonna drop the sketch like that, and now I'm gonna go pick the select the corner rectangle. I'm simply gonna draw another one like that. Okay, so I'm gonna trim the lines that I don't need. I'm simply gonna use the power trim and delete those. And now I'm gonna add the dimensions. The dimension I'm gonna add here is, this is 73, this is 80, from there to there it's 16.5, this is 40, and this dimension is 190. And I'm gonna go to features. I'm gonna click on extruded boss base, and the depth or the distance I'm gonna specify as 15 millimeters. I'm gonna click OK, and now I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna look normal to this face, and I'm gonna click on sketch, and I'm gonna draw the sketch on this face. So I'm gonna select this corner rectangle. I'm gonna line up somewhere there, and I'm gonna line up with this somewhere there. I'm just gonna simply drop it, and I'm gonna add the dimensions. This dimension I'm gonna add as 45 millimeters. This dimension I'm gonna add as 119. To just double check, I'm simply gonna add one dimension to here, and I'm gonna divide this one 119 divided by 2. I'm gonna click OK, and I'm gonna add the other side dimension too. So this fully defines the sketch. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on extruded boss base, and I'm gonna add the extrusion at 15 millimeters. So this is done, and now I will move to the next step. For the next step, I'm gonna rotate my model. I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna look normal too. And in here, I'm gonna click on sketch, and I'm gonna draw a circle. And the circle, I'm just gonna center it right there. And I'm gonna add the dimensions, which is the diameter. It's gonna be 50 millimeters. And I'm gonna click on features tab, and I'm gonna add another extrusion by clicking on extruded boss base icon. And the depth for this one is distance dimension is 12 millimeters. And now I will move to the next step. Next step is we're gonna add a few holes. To do that, I'm simply gonna click on hole wizard. Under the specifications, I'm gonna do select a straight tap. I'm gonna click here OK to that, and under here the standard is gonna be Dean, and the type is gonna be tapped hole, and the specification is M6, and the end condition is gonna be through all. I'm gonna click on the position tab. I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna put it somewhere there, and I'm gonna specify the dimensions from this center point to this edge. The distance is going to be 6.5 millimeters, and from here to here it's supposed to be 22.5 millimeters. I'm gonna click OK. I'm gonna click OK again. So this hole is added. Now I'm gonna copy this hole using linear pattern. And under the directions, I'm gonna select this one, and I'm gonna flip the direction towards this way, and I'm gonna flip the dimensions here as well. So I will need 2 instances, and I'm gonna specify 60 for that. For the second dimension, I'm gonna specify oops, I actually have 35 here. (35) and 60. These are the correct dimensions, and I'm gonna click OK. So these holes have been added. So I will move on to the next step. So the next step, there is a hole needed in the center, so I'm gonna click on the hole wizard again. And for these settings, I'm gonna specify it's gonna be a straight tap, and standard is gonna be Dean, and the type is gonna be bottoming tapped hole. And in here, I'm gonna select the type size is gonna be M10. And it's gonna be through all end condition. I'm gonna click on position tab, and I'm gonna select this face, and I'm gonna make it coincident with this origin, and I'm gonna click OK, and this hole will be added there. And now the next step, I'm gonna add chamfers, and to do that, I'm gonna click on the chamfer tool. And the dimensions for chamfer is going to be 10 here. And for the edges, I'm simply gonna select this one, this one. Oops, I got the wrong face. Delete. I'm gonna select this edge, and I'm gonna select this edge, and I'm gonna click OK. And I'm gonna add more chamfers to this part. The specification for the next set is 3 millimeters. For the edges, I'm gonna select this one, this one, this one, this one, and this edge, and I'm gonna click OK. And the last step for this part file is simply gonna assign material, and the material for this part is going to be plain carbon steel, and I'm gonna save this file. And now I'm gonna create sliding pin. To do that, I'm gonna open a new part file, and I'm gonna set the unit as mmgs, and I'm gonna save this file as, and I'm gonna name this file as sliding pin. And I'm gonna click on top plane, I'm gonna click on sketch icon, and I'm gonna draw a circle starting from the origin, and I'm gonna specify the dimensions as 15 millimeters, and I'm gonna go to features tab, and I'm gonna click on extruded boss, and the depth or distance I'm gonna specify as 15 millimeters. And now I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna click on sketch. So we're gonna look normal too. And I'm gonna draw another circle. Starting from the origin, and the dimension for this circle I'm gonna set as 8 millimeters. And then I'm gonna use this sketch to create a feature. I'm gonna click on Extruded Boss Base, and for the distance I'm gonna specify as 12 millimeters. Next feature that I'm gonna add for this part is a fillet, and I'm gonna click on fillet icon, and I'm gonna select this edge, and I'm gonna specify the fillet radius as 1. Now it needs to be 1, and I'm gonna click OK. And the next part, I'm gonna add chamfer. I'm gonna go to chamfer, and the specification for chamfer is 0.5 millimeters. And the edges, I'm gonna select this one and this one. I'm gonna click OK, and now I'm gonna assign the material. I'm simply gonna right click, and I'm gonna set this one as cast alloy steel, and I'm gonna save this file. Now the last part that needs to be created is simply the packages that will be transferred over. So I'm gonna create those parts now. Simply gonna go open a new part file. I'm gonna set the units as mmgs, and I'm gonna save this file as, I'm gonna name it packg. Gonna save this file. Now I'm gonna click on top plane, I'm gonna click on sketch, and I'm gonna draw a corner rectangle, and I'm gonna simply drop it there, and I'm gonna add the dimensions. So this one I'm gonna enter 70. This horizontal dimension is 120, and I'm gonna use this to add an extrusion, and the distance is 70 millimeters, and I'm gonna click OK. And for the material for this one, I'm gonna right click on the material under the feature manager, and I'm gonna select plastics. From there I'm gonna select nylon 101, and I'm gonna click OK, and nylon is assigned. I'm gonna save this file.